The alarm bells rang through Station Omega-7 like thunder in the metal corridors. Captain Rick Torres pulled his helmet tight and checked the seals one more time before stepping out of his ship. The maintenance work on the outer hull would take hours, and he wanted everything perfect. His crew of 12 humans had done this job 1,000 times before on different stations across the galaxy. Nothing seemed wrong that morning. The space station was huge, bigger than most cities back on Earth. Ships from 40 different alien races docked here every day to trade, refuel, and repair their vessels. The Nexari, with their blue skin and 6 arms, worked alongside the tall Zephyrians who looked like walking trees. Everyone followed the same safety rules. Everyone wore protection when working in the dangerous areas near the docking bays. Rick watched his team spread out across the hull of their cargo ship New Horizon. Each person wore the standard human space helmet with its clear face shield and built-in communication system. The helmets had neural interfaces that helped humans think faster and work better in the complex environment of space. Every human wore them during dangerous work. It was the law. The first sign of trouble came from the Vorthan mining ship Crystal Bearer, docked 3 bays over. Their captain started sending distress signals within minutes of the human crew beginning their work. Rick could see the alien ship through his helmet display, and it looked fine from the outside. No damage, no fires, no obvious problems. Then the station's main computer started acting strange. The navigation systems began calculating flight paths that made no sense. Routes through space that should have been impossible appeared on every screen. The numbers were so complex that even the station's advanced artificial intelligence could not understand them. Rick heard the worried voices of alien crew members through his radio. The Nexari were speaking in their clicking language, but the translation software made their panic clear. Their ship systems were receiving data that broke all known rules of physics. The mathematics were beyond anything their science could explain. More ships in the docking bay started reporting problems. The Zephyrian vessel Tall Wind found its engines calculating hyperspace jumps to places that did not exist on any star map. The small trading ship from the insect-like Keth people discovered its computers working on equations that seemed to bend time and space. Station Commander Veltar, a Nexari with bright blue skin and nervous twitching antennae, contacted Rick directly. His voice carried the universal tone of barely controlled fear. The translator made his words sound mechanical, but the emotion came through clearly. Rick, we need your crew to stop whatever they are doing right now. Every ship in this bay is experiencing massive system failures. Our computers are processing information that should not exist. 3 of my people have collapsed from neural overload just from looking at their screens. Rick looked around at his crew, still working calmly on the hull repairs. They were doing nothing unusual, just standard maintenance with standard tools. But somehow their presence, their work, their helmets were causing chaos throughout the station. We are just doing normal repairs, Commander. Our people are not touching any other ships or systems. We have no connection to your vessels except basic proximity sensors. The station's main artificial intelligence suddenly spoke through every communication channel at once. Its voice, usually calm and helpful, now carried an edge of something that might have been wonder or terror. The AI announced that it was calculating mathematical possibilities that extended beyond the known universe. Equations that could reshape reality itself were flowing through its processors. Rick ordered his crew back to their ship immediately. As each human stepped away from their work and moved toward the airlock, the chaos in the other ships began to calm. The impossible calculations slowed down. The neural overload stopped. The mathematics that had been breaking the rules of physics faded back to normal, but the damage was done. Word of the incident spread through the galactic communication network. Faster than light itself? Every major government, every trading company, every military force in known space heard about the humans who had somehow caused reality to malfunction. Just by wearing their helmets and doing their jobs, within hours, emergency meetings were called on dozens of worlds. The Galactic Council, which had not gathered in emergency session for 300 years, announced a special hearing. Representatives from every major species would attend. The subject was clear: what to do about the humans and their dangerous helmets. Rick and his crew waited in their ship while station security ran test after test. Every scan came back normal. Their helmets were standard human equipment with nothing unusual about them. The neural interfaces were the same ones used by millions of humans across the galaxy. There was no new technology, no secret weapons, no hidden devices. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the New Horizons science officer, spent hours reviewing the data from the other ships. The mathematics that had appeared in their systems were unlike anything in recorded galactic history. They dealt with concepts that most species could not even understand, let alone use. Yet somehow, the presence of humans wearing helmets had triggered these impossible calculations. Elena found patterns in the chaos that made her hands shake. The equations were not random. They were organized, purposeful, as if some vast intelligence was trying to communicate through the mathematics itself. The neural interfaces in the human helmets had somehow become translators for knowledge that came from beyond normal space and time. When the station's investigation team finally gave Rick permission to leave, they delivered a message that would change everything. The Galactic Council had voted. Until further study could determine what was happening, humans were forbidden from boarding any vessel while wearing helmets. The safety of all galactic commerce depended on understanding and controlling whatever power the humans had accidentally unleashed. Rick looked out at the stars as his ship pulled away from Station Omega 7. Somewhere in that vast darkness, something had noticed humanity. Something had tried to make contact through the neural interfaces in their helmets. And now the entire galaxy was afraid of what that contact might mean. The ban would affect every human in space. Millions of workers, traders, explorers, and researchers would have to choose between their safety and their livelihoods. But Rick knew that the real question was not about helmets or safety regulations. The real question was what had tried to speak to them through the mathematics, and why it had chosen humans to be its voice. As the New Horizon jumped to hyperspace, Elena was already planning the research that would need to be done. They had to understand what happened at the station. They had to learn why human helmets triggered responses from technologies they had never touched. And most importantly, they had to figure out what vast intelligence had used their neural interfaces to send mathematical messages across the galaxy. The answers would determine whether humanity's future lay in integration with galactic society or in isolation from it. But first, they had to discover who or what had been trying to talk to them through the language of impossible mathematics. 3 months after the incident at Station Omega 7, Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her laboratory aboard the human research ship Curiosity, staring at readings that should have been impossible. The Galactic Council's ban on human helmets had created a crisis that affected every human operation in space, but it had also given her the chance to study the phenomenon that had started it all. The research vessel floated in empty space, far from any alien ships or stations. Elena could not risk another incident like the one that had caused the ban. Her team needed to understand what happened when humans wore their neural interface helmets, and they needed to do it without endangering other species. Lieutenant Jake Morrison sat in the testing chamber, looking calm despite being the center of the most important research project in human space. The standard space helmet rested on the table in front of him, its neural interface cables snaking out like electronic tentacles. Every surface in the room was covered with monitoring equipment that would track everything from his brainwaves to the quantum fields around his body. Dr. Marcus Webb checked the readings one more time before giving Elena the signal that they were ready. The quantum field scanner was online. The electromagnetic sensors were calibrated. The neural activity monitors were recording baseline data. Everything was prepared for the test that might explain why the galaxy feared human helmets. Elena watched the displays as Morrison reached for the helmet. The moment his fingers touched the metal surface, the quantum sensors registered fluctuations that made no scientific sense. Energy patterns that should not exist began forming around the helmet before Morrison even put it on. When Morrison finally placed the helmet over his head and activated the neural interface, the laboratory filled with readings that challenged everything Elena knew about physics. The quantum field scanner showed patterns of energy that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The electromagnetic sensors detected waves that moved in directions that had no names in any language, but the most shocking readings came from Morrison himself. His brain activity increased beyond anything previously recorded in human subjects. Neural pathways that medical science insisted were inactive began lighting up with electrical activity. Morrison's mind was accessing areas of itself that should not have been functional. Elena spoke into her microphone, her voice carefully controlled despite her excitement. "Jake, can you tell us what you are experiencing right now?" Morrison's reply sent chills through everyone in the laboratory. "I can see the mathematics, Dr. Vasquez. Not just numbers on a screen, but the actual equations that control how space and time work. They are flowing through my mind like a river of pure understanding." Dr. Webb's instruments showed that Morrison's brain was processing information at rates that should have killed him. The neural interface helmet was somehow allowing his human mind to handle mathematical concepts that were far beyond normal human intelligence. It was as if the helmet was unlocking hidden abilities that evolution had placed in human brains and then forgotten about. Elena ordered a historical analysis of human mathematical development while Morrison continued his test. The computer search revealed patterns that had been hidden for centuries. Throughout human history, the greatest mathematical breakthroughs had come from people who claimed their discoveries appeared in dreams or sudden flashes of insight. Newton, Einstein, and dozens of other brilliant minds had described receiving knowledge that seemed to come from outside their normal thinking. The analysis suggested that humans had been receiving advanced mathematical knowledge for thousands of years, but only in small pieces that individual minds could handle. The neural interface helmets were amplifying this process, allowing humans to access the full stream of information that had been flowing to them all along. Meanwhile, Ambassador Veltar was conducting his own research aboard the Nexari ship Enlightenment. His species had developed consciousness scanning technology that could map the structure of any intelligent mind, and what they were discovering about humans was deeply disturbing. The scans showed that human brains contained evolutionary markers, suggesting exposure to mathematical concepts far beyond their current technology level. The neural pathways needed to understand hyperdimensional mathematics were present in every human mind, but they remained dormant until activated by the right stimulus. The helmets were that stimulus. Dr. Nexara, Veltar's chief scientist, studied the brain scans with growing alarm. Ambassador, these patterns suggest that humans are not naturally evolved intelligence. Their neural architecture shows signs of deliberate modification, as if some advanced intelligence designed them to be capable of understanding concepts that no other species can grasp. Veltar's 6 eyes focused on the data with the intensity that only came from recognizing a threat to galactic stability. If humans were designed to be receptors for advanced mathematical knowledge, then whoever created them had been planning for this moment for thousands of years. The ban on helmets might already be too late to prevent whatever was supposed to happen. Back on the Curiosity, Morrison was describing experiences that no human should have been able to have. "The equations I am seeing describe ways to bend space that would allow travel between any 2 points in the universe instantly. They show methods for creating energy that would never run out. They explain how to build materials that are stronger than anything we have ever imagined." Elena realized that they were not just studying a scientific phenomenon. They were witnessing the next step in human evolution, guided by intelligence that remained hidden but was clearly far more advanced than anything in the known galaxy. The neural interface helmets were not creating new abilities in human minds. They were allowing humans to access abilities that had been deliberately placed there long ago. The implications terrified her. If humans were designed to receive this knowledge, then the beings who designed them were still out there somewhere, waiting for the right moment to make contact. The incident at Station Omega 7 might have been just the beginning of a plan that had been in motion for millennia. Morrison suddenly sat up straighter in the testing chamber. his voice taking on a quality that suggested he was no longer speaking entirely for himself. "They have been waiting for us to develop the technology to hear them clearly. The helmets are just the first step. They want to teach us everything, but they need us to prove we are ready for the responsibility that comes with such knowledge." Elena's hands shook as she realized that whatever intelligence had been sending mathematical knowledge to humans throughout history was now trying to make direct contact. The neural interface helmets were not just amplifying human abilities. They were serving as communication devices for beings that existed beyond normal space and time. The research that was supposed to explain the helmet phenomenon had instead revealed that humanity was part of a plan that spanned thousands of years. And now that plan was entering its final phase. Captain Diana Brooks felt the curiosity shudder around her as space itself began to change. The research vessel's instruments screamed warnings that made no sense. According to the sensors, reality was being rewritten in the space around them. But the ship remained perfectly intact. The laws of physics were bending, but somehow they were protected from the chaos. On the bridge, Navigator Paul Anderson stared at his displays with the expression of a man watching his understanding of the universe collapse. "Captain, the space around us is not behaving like space should behave. The mathematics that control how distances and directions work are changing. We are still here, but here is not the same place it was 5 minutes ago." Dr. Elena Vasquez ran onto the bridge with her laboratory data still clutched in her hands. "Captain, you need to see Morrison right now. Something is using him to communicate, and I do not think it is entirely human anymore." In the testing chamber, Lieutenant Morrison sat perfectly still with the neural interface helmet covering his head. His vital signs showed that his brain was operating at levels that should have been impossible for any human to survive. But instead of dying from the neural overload, he appeared to be growing stronger and more aware with each passing moment. Brooks activated the chamber's communication system and spoke directly to Morrison. "Lieutenant, can you hear me? What is happening to you in there?" Morrison's voice, when it came, carried harmonics that suggested multiple speakers talking at the same time. "We hear you, Captain Brooks. We have been waiting so long for this moment. Your species has finally developed the neural complexity necessary for true communication." The bridge crew exchanged glances of fear and wonder. Morrison was clearly no longer speaking only for himself. Something vast and intelligent was using him as a translator, turning his human voice into words that could bridge the gap between two entirely different forms of existence. "We are the architects of understanding," Morrison continued, his voice growing stronger and more alien with each word. "We seeded mathematical knowledge throughout this galaxy long before your species existed. We have been guiding the development of intelligence wherever we found it capable of growth." Brooks demanded answers that her training had never prepared her to ask. "What do you want from humanity? Why are you making contact now?" The space around the Curiosity shifted again, and suddenly they were no longer floating in empty space. Through the viewports, the crew could see that they were inside a vast structure that seemed to be built from pure mathematics. Equations and formulas formed the walls and corridors of a space that extended infinitely in all directions. "We want the same thing we have always wanted," Morrison replied. "To teach, to share the knowledge that binds reality together. Your species possesses a unique combination of analytical thinking and creative intuition that makes you perfect students for what we have to offer." Dr. Vasquez studied the mathematical structure around them with growing amazement. The equations that formed the walls were not static symbols. They were living mathematics that changed and evolved as she watched. The knowledge contained in this place could revolutionize every field of science that humans had ever studied, but Captain Brooks was more concerned with practical matters. "What happened to the other species that you taught? Where are they now?" The mathematical space around them shifted to show images from the distant past. Ancient civilizations that had reached heights of technology that modern species could barely imagine. Beings who had learned to manipulate matter and energy at the most fundamental levels. Species that had transcended the need for physical bodies and existed as pure, Consciousness? The progenitors achieved complete understanding 12,000 years ago, Morrison explained. They learned to alter reality at will, to create and destroy matter with mathematical formulas, to exist outside the normal flow of time. But in gaining such power, they lost something essential about what it means to be alive. The images showed the final days of the progenitors, being so advanced that they had forgotten what it felt like to exist in the physical universe. They had become so focused on mathematical perfection that they no longer cared about the world they had once called home. Eventually, they had simply faded away, choosing to exist as pure thought rather than continue living in material reality. This is the danger we must warn you about, Morrison continued. Knowledge without wisdom leads to transcendence without purpose. The progenitors gained the power to reshape existence, but lost the desire to use that power for anything meaningful. Navigator Anderson asked the question that was on everyone's mind. How do we know that humanity will not make the same mistake? The architect's response came with something that might have been laughter. Because your species understands something that the progenitors never learned. You know that knowledge without connection to others is meaningless. Humans have always been social beings who find purpose in helping and teaching each other. The mathematical space around them began to show different possibilities for humanity's future. In some timelines, humans became wise guardians who used their knowledge to help other species develop and grow. In others, they became tyrants who used their power to dominate the galaxy. In still others, they rejected the knowledge entirely and remained forever limited to their current level of understanding. Dr. Vasquez realized that they were being offered a choice that would determine the future of not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. The knowledge the architects possessed could solve every problem that civilization faced, but it came with risks that could destroy everything they were trying to protect. Captain Brooks made the decision that would echo through history. We want to learn, but we want to learn responsibly. If you are going to teach us, then you need to help us understand not just how to use this knowledge, but how to use it wisely. The architect's approval was evident in the way the mathematical space around them brightened and became more welcoming. This is why we chose your species, Morrison said. You understand that true intelligence involves not just the ability to learn, but the wisdom to know when and how to apply what you have learned. As the Curiosity prepared to return to normal space, the crew realized that they were carrying more than just knowledge back to the galaxy. They were carrying the responsibility to serve as bridges between the architects and the other species who would eventually need to face the same choice that humanity was now confronting. The first contact protocol had been completed, but the real work was just beginning. Humanity had been chosen to become the architect's students, but they would also need to become teachers for every other species in the galaxy. The mathematical knowledge that could reshape reality was about to become available to anyone wise enough to use it properly, and somewhere in the constructed space of the architects, ancient beings watched with satisfaction as their longest experiment finally began to bear fruit. The universe was about to discover what happened when infinite knowledge met finite wisdom, and the results would determine whether civilization would rise to unimaginable heights or fall into chaos that could never be repaired. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos that had not been seen for over 1,000 years. Representatives from 47 different species filled the great chamber on the neutral world of Harmony Station, their usual diplomatic composure shattered by reports that defied everything they thought they knew about the universe. High Counselor Morden called for order with his 6 arms spread wide, but his multiple eyes showed the same fear that gripped every delegate in the room. The human research vessel Curiosity had vanished from all known space exactly 72 hours ago. Deep space sensors had detected massive gravitational anomalies at the location where it disappeared, followed by complete silence. The assembled representatives had been arguing for hours about what action to take, but the debate had been interrupted by something far more disturbing than the missing ship. Reality itself was becoming unstable throughout the galaxy. Ships were reporting navigation systems that calculated impossible routes. Planets were experiencing gravity fluctuations that followed no known laws of physics, the very fabric of space, and time was being altered by forces that no one understood. Ambassador Veltar of the Nexari delegation stood slowly, his blue skin pale with the weight of secrets that his people had kept for thousands of years. Honorable council members, I must share information that my species has hidden since before most of your civilizations developed space travel. The beings that the humans have contacted are not unknown to us. A ripple of shocked silence passed through the chamber. The Nexari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, their records stretching back over 10,000 years. If they had knowledge about what was happening to humanity, that knowledge could determine the fate of every world in known space. 5,000 years ago, Veltar continued, my ancestors encountered entities that called themselves the architects of understanding. They offered us the same gift they are now offering humanity: complete mathematical knowledge of how reality operates at its most fundamental level. Commander Koth of the Zephyrian military delegation rose to his full height, his tree-like form towering over the other representatives. If these architects possessed such knowledge, why have we never heard of them before? What happened to your ancestors' contact with them? Veltar's breathing apparatus clicked nervously as he prepared to reveal the most closely guarded secret. In Nexari history, we chose to refuse their offer. Our scientists studied the knowledge they shared during their initial contact, and we discovered what had happened to the last species that accepted their teachings. The chamber erupted in demands for more information. Dozens of species began talking at once, their translation devices creating a cacophony of questions and concerns. Morden was forced to activate the chamber's sound-dampening field to restore order. The progenitors, Veltar announced, achieved mathematical transcendence 12,000 years ago. They became the most advanced civilization the galaxy has ever known, capable of manipulating matter and energy at the atomic level. They could create new stars, reshape planets, and travel instantaneously between any 2 points in the universe. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, representing the human diplomatic mission, listened with growing dread as Veltar described the ultimate fate of the progenitors. They had achieved such mastery over the physical universe that they eventually lost interest in existing within it. Within a few centuries of gaining their powers, they had simply transcended beyond the need for material existence and vanished from normal space and time. But the real horror, Veltar continued, was what they left behind. A galaxy where the fundamental laws of physics had been altered so many times that reality itself became unstable. It took thousands of years for the universe to repair the damage they caused through their experimentation. Commander Koth's response spoke for most of the assembled delegates. And now the humans are being offered the same knowledge that destroyed the progenitors. We cannot allow this to happen. The safety of every species in the galaxy depends on stopping them before they gain powers that could reshape existence itself. The debate that followed revealed the depth of galactic fear about humanity's potential. Species after species stood to declare that humans could not be trusted with the power to alter reality. Their history was filled with conflicts and wars. Their tendency toward aggression and expansion made them unsuitable guardians of universal knowledge. Dr. Tanaka fought to defend her species against accusations that grew more serious with each speaker. Humans have never shown interest in galactic domination. We explore and trade, but we do not conquer other species or force our beliefs on alien civilizations. The Corvani representative, a being that looked like a walking crystal formation, responded, with facts that could not be disputed. Human expansion has been constant since you achieved space travel. You establish colonies wherever you find suitable worlds. Your military forces are among the most advanced in the galaxy. How can we trust such an aggressive species with the power to rewrite the laws of physics? As the accusations continued, none of the council members noticed the subtle changes that were beginning to occur in the space around them. The mathematical equations that governed their reality were shifting, influenced by knowledge being shared light years away in a realm that existed beyond normal space and time. The gravitational field in the chamber fluctuated slightly, causing some delegates to feel momentarily lighter. The electromagnetic spectrum expanded to include colors that had no names in any language. Time itself seemed to hiccup, with seconds stretching longer than they should have and then snapping back to normal duration. Ambassador Veltar was the first to recognize what was happening. The knowledge transfer has already begun. The humans are learning mathematical concepts that affect reality throughout the galaxy. Simply by receiving this information, they are changing the fundamental structure of space and time, the chambers. Central display screen activated without any input from the control systems. Images appeared showing the interior of the Curiosity, where the human crew stood in a space built from pure mathematics. Captain Brooks' voice echoed through the council chamber with clarity that should have been impossible across such vast distances. Citizens of the galaxy, we can see and hear your discussions through the quantum entanglement that connects all consciousness. The architects have made us an offer that will affect every intelligent species in known space. We must choose not just for humanity, but for the future of galactic civilization itself. The delegates watched in amazement and terror as Dr. Vasquez gestured to mathematical constructs that surrounded the human crew. The knowledge being offered could solve every problem the galaxy faces. Unlimited clean energy that would never run out. Instantaneous travel that would make every world accessible to every species. The ability to restore dead planets and create new ones for growing populations. Lieutenant Morrison, still serving as a conduit for communication with the architects, stepped forward to address the council directly. But this knowledge comes with responsibilities that terrify us. We would become the guardians of reality itself, maintaining the mathematical equations that keep existence stable and guiding younger species toward wisdom rather than destruction. Commander Koth's outrage was shared by representatives throughout the chamber. You speak of guardianship, but what you describe is absolute power over every aspect of galactic life. No single species should possess the ability to control reality itself, Captain. Brooks' response carried a weight of understanding that surprised even her harshest critics. You are absolutely right, Commander. That is exactly why we are proposing something that has never been attempted before. If we accept this knowledge, it will not belong to humanity alone. We will share it gradually with every species that proves ready for the responsibility it brings. The reality fluctuations in the Galactic Council chamber reached critical levels as Captain Brooks finished her proposal. Gravity shifted unpredictably, causing delegates to float briefly before crashing back to their seats. The walls flickered between solid matter and transparent energy, sometimes showing glimpses of other dimensions where the laws of physics operated under completely different rules. Counselor Morden struggled to maintain control as species representatives demanded immediate military action against the human vessel. His 6 arms gestured frantically for order while his multiple eyes tracked the impossible changes occurring throughout the chamber. The mathematical foundations of reality were being rewritten in real time, and everyone present could feel the universe shifting around them. We must launch every available warship to the humans' last known coordinates, Commander Koth declared, his tree-like form swaying as gravity fluctuated around him. If they complete their knowledge transfer with these architects, they will possess the power to destroy or enslave every species in the galaxy. Ambassador Veltar's breathing apparatus clicked rapidly as he monitored readings from his personal sensors. The quantum entanglement is spreading. Every word the humans speak to these architects creates ripples that affect the structure of space and time throughout known space. Simply by communicating with beings of such advanced knowledge, they are changing fundamental constants that have remained stable for billions of years. Dr. Yuki Tanaka watched the chaos around her with growing understanding of why the galaxy feared humanity's contact with the architects. The power being offered was beyond anything that finite minds could safely handle. But the humans aboard the Curiosity had found a solution that surprised everyone who heard it. The chamber's central display continued showing the interior of the research vessel, where Lieutenant Morrison served as a conduit between human consciousness and the vast intelligence of the architects. His voice carried harmonics that suggested he was translating concepts that existed beyond normal language. The architects offer knowledge, but they also offer wisdom, Morrison announced to the assembled council. They have watched the rise and fall of countless civilizations. They know the dangers that come with unlimited power, and they have developed methods for sharing knowledge, gradually in ways that allow species to grow into their responsibilities. Captain Brooks stepped forward to address the council directly. Her image transmitted across impossible distances through quantum connections that the architects maintained. We propose the creation of an institute for mathematical reality where representatives from every species can study the fundamental equations of existence. No one civilization will control this knowledge. All who prove ready will share in its benefits and responsibilities. The proposal sent shock waves through the assembled delegates. The idea of sharing reality-altering knowledge among dozens of different species was unprecedented in galactic history. Most civilizations guarded their scientific advances jealously, using superior technology as weapons in the constant struggle for resources and territory. Dr. Vasquez appeared on the display beside Brooks, gesturing to mathematical constructs that formed and dissolved around the human crew. The architects have shown us that knowledge shared is knowledge strengthened. When multiple perspectives work together to understand reality's structure, the results are far more stable and beneficial than when any single viewpoint dominates. Commander Koth's objection was immediate and fierce. This proposal asks us to trust humanity with knowledge that could reshape existence itself. Your species has a history of conflict and domination that makes such trust impossible to grant. Morrison's response carried the wisdom of beings who had observed galactic civilization for thousands of years. That history of conflict is exactly why humanity might be the right choice to serve as initial guardians. We understand the temptation of absolute power because we have struggled with it throughout our development. We know the dangers because we have experienced them. The architects began demonstrating their point by showing the council visions of potential futures. In one timeline, humanity accepted the knowledge but kept it secret, eventually becoming tyrants who ruled the galaxy through mathematical manipulation of reality. In another, they shared the knowledge too quickly with unprepared species, causing a collapse of civilization as different groups used their new powers against each other. But the third timeline showed something that had never been attempted before. Humanity accepted the role of initial guardians but immediately began training representatives from other species to share the responsibility. The knowledge was distributed gradually, with each species proving their wisdom before gaining access to more advanced concepts. The result was a galactic civilization that achieved unprecedented prosperity and peace. The reality fluctuations in the council chamber began to stabilize as the architects focused their attention on demonstrating the collaborative approach. Delegates found themselves suddenly able to perceive mathematical relationships that had been invisible moments before. The equations governing gravity, electromagnetic fields, and quantum mechanics became as clear as simple arithmetic. Ambassador Veltar was among the first to understand what was happening. The knowledge is already being shared with us. By listening to the humans' communication with the architects, we are all becoming part of this transformation. We are no longer outside observers debating policy. We are participants in the evolution of galactic consciousness. Dr. Tanaka felt her own understanding expand as concepts that had been theoretical suddenly became practical. The fear that had dominated the council session began giving way to wonder as delegates realized they were experiencing the careful, controlled sharing of knowledge that the humans had proposed. Captain Brooks made the announcement that would define the next era of galactic history. We accept the responsibility of serving as initial guardians, but only with the understanding that this knowledge belongs to all intelligent species willing to use it wisely. The Institute for Mathematical Reality will open within 1 year, and every civilization in the galaxy will be invited to send students and researchers. The architects' approval manifested as a wave of understanding that passed through the council chamber. Delegates who had been calling for military action against humanity moments before found themselves grasping concepts that could benefit their entire species. The mathematics of unlimited energy became clear. The equations for instantaneous travel revealed themselves. The formulas for restoring damaged worlds and creating new ones settled into minds that were finally ready to comprehend them. Morrison delivered the architect's final message to the assembled council. This galaxy will become the first to achieve true collaborative transcendence. Instead of one species rising above the others, all will rise together. The knowledge we offer will not create masters and servants, but partners in the ongoing work of understanding and maintaining reality itself. The vote, when it finally came, was unanimous. The ban on human helmets was lifted, but it no longer mattered. The neural interfaces had been replaced by something far more sophisticated: direct quantum entanglement between conscious minds and the mathematical structure of existence itself. Within months, the Institute for Mathematical Reality became the most important institution in galactic civilization. Representatives from every species came to study under human instructors who had learned from the architects themselves. The knowledge was shared carefully, with each student proving their wisdom and responsibility before advancing to more complex concepts. The galaxy was transformed, not through conquest or domination, but through the patient work of teaching and learning. Species that had been enemies for centuries found common ground in their shared study of reality's fundamental structure. Wars ended as civilizations discovered that cooperation yielded far greater benefits than conflict. And in the deep spaces between stars, the architects watched with satisfaction as their greatest experiment succeeded beyond their most optimistic calculations. They had found a species capable of serving as bridges between infinite knowledge and finite wisdom. The universe had gained guardians who understood that true power came not from what they could control, but from what they could teach others. To understand, the age of collaborative transcendence had begun, and with it, a future where the boundaries between possible and impossible were limited only by the combined imagination of all who dared to learn together.